Chapter 6. Is Religion an Opium? My doctoral advisor asked me with a wink, "What do you think of those who say that religion is an opium, that it numbs the poor and the oppressed, making them accept their poverty and injustice, dreaming of paradise and houris, while it confirms the wealthy in their wealth, considering it a right, and that God created people in different ranks? What do you think of those who say that religion was not revealed by God, but emerged from the earth, from social conditions and motives, to be a weapon for one class against another?" he added, referring to the materialists and their ideas. I replied, "Nothing is further from error than the claim that religion is an opium. In its essence, religion entails duties, obligations, and responsibilities. It is not an escape or a license. Therefore, it is not an evasion of responsibilities, nor is it an opium. Our religion is about action, not laziness. Say, work, and Allah will see your work, and so will His messenger, and the believers. We believe in tawakkul, reliance on God, not tawakkul, negligent dependence. Tawakkul, in our understanding, requires resolve, exhausting all means and exerting utmost effort and ingenuity, only then submitting to the decree and wisdom of God. God says, "And when you have decided, then rely upon Allah." Resolution comes first. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said to the man who wanted to leave his camel untethered, relying on God's protection, "Tie it first, then rely on God." Meaning, do your utmost first, secure it with its hobble, then rely on God. Religion is wakefulness, alertness, vigilance, and self-accountability for every action, every word, and every thought. This is not the state of one who takes opium. The true opium addict is the materialist who denies religion to escape its duties and responsibilities, imagining that his moment is entirely his own, that there is no reckoner, no observer, and no resurrection after death, so he does whatever crosses his mind. How far is this man from the observant Muslim who considers himself responsible even for a speck of dust? If a member of his community is wronged or an animal is beaten, he reproaches himself for not fulfilling the religious duty incumbent upon him. It is also untrue that our religion emerged from the earth and from social conditions and motives to be a weapon for one class against another, cementing the wealth of the rich and the poverty of the poor. The opposite is true. Islam came as a revolution against the wealthy, the hoarders of wealth, and the exploiters and oppressors. It explicitly commanded that wealth should not circulate only among the rich, monopolized and traded among themselves, but rather it is a right for all. God says in Surah At-Tawbah, verse 34, "And those who hoard gold and silver and do not spend it in the way of Allah, give them tidings of a painful punishment." Spending begins with a mandatory zakat of 2.5%, then escalates voluntarily to everything in one's pocket and everything in one's hand, leaving for oneself only one's bare sustenance. Anything beyond that, whose harm overweighs its benefit. They ask you what they should spend. Say, the excess, and the excess is everything beyond one's sustenance and need. Thus, Islam combined mandatory legal obligation and voluntary obligation based on conscience. This is more honorable for humanity than seizing properties by force and confiscation. It raised spending to over 90% without hardship. Islam did not come to affirm the injustice of the oppressors. Rather, it came as an explicit revolution against all oppressors and came as a sword and war against the necks of tyrants and despots. As for the accusation put forth by the materialists that religion is reactionary and class-based, citing verses like, "And Allah has favored some of you over others in provision," and "It is we who have apportioned among them their livelihood in the life of this world, and have raised some of them above others in degrees that they make use of one another for service," we respond that these verses apply to London, Paris, Berlin, and Moscow, just as they apply to Cairo, Damascus, and Jeddah. If we walk the streets of Moscow, we will find those who walk on foot, those who ride a bicycle, those who ride a Moskvich car, and those who ride a luxury Zil car. What is this if not the very distinction in provision and economic grades and ranks? Inequality among people is a fundamental reality. Communism could not abolish disparity, and not even the extremists among materialists and anarchists have called for absolute equality. Equality is impossible. How can we equalize those who are inherently unequal? People are born from the moment of birth unequal in intelligence, strength, beauty, and talents. They are born with degrees in everything. The utmost that economic doctrines have aspired to is equality of opportunity, not equality among people. Providing everyone with the same opportunities in education, health care, and a minimum standard of living is precisely what religions advocate. As for abolishing grades and eliminating disparity, that is injustice itself, contrary to nature. Nature is entirely based on distinction, disparity, and diversity. In the fruits of the earth, in animals, and in people, in cotton, we find long stapple and short stapple. In dates, we find the zagul, the samani, and the azmerli. In animals and humans, we find ranks, degrees, and disparity even more so. This is the law of all existence, distinction.
The wisdom of this law is clear. If all people were born with one character, one mold, and one copy, there would be no reason for their birth at all. One copy would suffice for all. The same applies to everything. The result would not be the poverty of nature and its bankruptcy, but rather the richness and fertility of nature only appear through the diversification of its fruits and yields, and the variation in its fruits. Nevertheless, religion did not remain silent on this disparity between the rich and the poor. It commanded the rectification of conditions and gave the poor a share in the wealth of the rich. It said that this disparity is a trial and a test. And we have made some of you a trial for others. Will you be patient? And ever is your Lord seeing. We will see what the strong does with his strength. Will he support the weak with it? Or will he strike, kill, and become a tyrant on earth? We will see what the rich does with his wealth. Will he become arrogant and extravagant, or will he be compassionate and do good? We will see what the poor does with his poverty. Will he envy, harbor malice, steal, and embezzle? Or will he work, strive, and endeavor to raise his standard of living through lawful and just means? Religion has commanded justice and the rectification of conditions and equality of opportunity. It threatened with the punishment of the hereafter, stating that the hereafter will also have degrees, even more disparate, to correct what was not rectified on earth. The hereafter has greater degrees and greater distinction. To those who accuse Islam of political reactionism, we say that Islam brought the most progressive laws in systems of governance. The respect for the individual in Islam reached its peak, preceded the Human Rights Charter, and surpassed it. What is the value of a single individual in Islam? He is equal to all of humanity. Because of that, we decreed upon the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul, unless for a soul or for corruption done in the land, it is as if he had slain mankind entirely. And whoever saves one, it is as if he had saved mankind entirely.
achievements, material reforms, construction, dams, and factories are of no avail if the ruler unjustly kills a single individual for the sake of this reform. He would have killed all people. A peak in respecting the individual that no political doctrine, old or new, has reached. The individual in Islam has an absolute value, whereas in all other political doctrines he has a relative value. The individual in Islam is secure in his home and his privacy, no spying, no backbiting. He is secure in his wealth, his provision, his ownership, and his freedom. Everything, even the greeting, even making room in the gathering, even a kind word has its place in the Quran. The Quran forbade arrogance, tyranny, and monopolizing rule. God said to the Prophet, with all his perfection and suitability, "You are not over them a controller. So remind, O Muhammad, you are only a reminder. The believers are but brothers, so make settlement between your brothers, and fear Allah, that you may receive mercy." It forbade the deification of the ruler and the sanctification of the great. We worship none but God, and we associate nothing with Him, nor do any of us take others as lords besides God. It forbade mob rule, flattering the masses and following the misleading majority, saying, "But most of the people do not know. Rather, most of them do not use reason. Most of the people do not believe. They are not except like livestock, but they are even more astray." It forbade racism and tribalism. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. He created you from one soul. In the scientific sense, Islam was a dialectical synthesis, combining the materialism of Judaism and the spirituality of Christianity, between the harsh, dry justice that says, "an eye for an eye," and the extreme love and forgiveness that says, "If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other also." The Quran came as a middle ground between the Torah, which was distorted until it became a material book without a single letter about the hereafter, and the Gospel, which inclined towards complete monasticism. The Quran called for a law of mercy, combining justice and love, sanctioning self-defense but preferring forgiveness, pardon, and mercy. But whoever pardons and makes reconciliation, his reward is due from Allah. And for whoever is patient and forgives, indeed, that is of the matters requiring determination.
If capitalism granted the individual freedom of acquisition to the point of exploiting others, and if communism completely crushed this freedom, then Islam presented the middle solution. For men is a share of what they have earned, and for women is a share of what they have earned. The individual is free to earn, but he may not take anything that is not his own.